Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, a strong storm affecting the northwest part of the state today with gusty winds, and winds gusted actually as high as 111 miles per hour to Long Mountains here. And it sounds like a pretty high elevation, but they're only 1,600 feet at the site there. Cape Lisburne, wind gusts 92 miles per hour. Red Dog, 71 mile an hour wind gusts. And both Point Hope and Tin City had 64 mile per hour wind gusts. And that due to a storm that's a strong front that's just to the west there. And winter storm warnings are out from St. Lawrence Island across the Seward Peninsula, Bering Strait coast, lower mid-Yukon River Valley areas, northward across Galena and into the Kobuk Valley, as well as the Noatak and northwest coastal areas. Also, the northeastern Brooks Range still under the influence of a winter storm warning, while we've got advisories back here to the west and along the western coast there, Point Lay, and also winter weather advisories out for the Yukon Delta. And these are all out tonight and then into a portion of tomorrow. All these ending or due to end at some time during the day tomorrow, Sunday. Anyway, moving on to the satellite imagery, you can see the big storm pulling up to the north there. A couple of centers, one up toward Wrangel Island, another one back over the Russian Far East. And the front right in this position just west of the northwest coast there, extending back down through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island, and then back down across the Pueblos, much weaker down in this portion. Precipitation, not really all that much, just about 0.2 of an inch at St. Paul and St. George in the last 24 hours. Otherwise, Cold Bay picked up about 0.5 inch, mostly due to this moisture here with another system to the southeast. And really not a whole lot recorded at Unalaska there. Still a little narrow band of precipitation still to their west, more over Unmak Island. Lots of showers, colder air. Still gusty winds, 50 to 60 miles an hour in gusts across the western Aleutians today, but that strong 90 mile per hour winds you had yesterday just to your northwest, well, that took right off to the northeast there and clipped the western Arctic coast today, especially hammering Cape Lisburne and the Long Mountain areas. Otherwise, we had some moisture slip on up into the south central Alaska area today. Really a lot less actually than what I thought. I thought there'd be a little more precipitation with it, but generally just clouds, areas of fog developing down to a half-mile visibility, Merrifield and Anchorage, and areas of fog across northern Cook Inlet. Some dense fog this morning in the Fairbanks area, that breaking out a little bit this afternoon. We've got more moisture coming up, rain falling in Akiak this afternoon, but nothing at Kodiak, and then areas of rain along the Alaska Peninsula. And the southeast coast, pretty good conditions there. Looks like a few clouds over the central areas as a very weak band of moisture drops southeastward, no precipitation in it, just some clouds passing by. Winds a lot lighter, especially in the Lynn Canal area and the channels than they were yesterday. And sunshine, either side of that band as it moved through. But lots of clouds here over the interior, mid and high level stuff spilling into the central Brooks Range and the Koyukuk Valley with this system here, but the precipitation holding back to the west. On the chart today, you can see strong high pressure still holding over the Yukon, but the gradient a lot less here across the southeast coast than it was yesterday. Higher pressure in the Gulf of Alaska, and just this very weak, washed out trailing edge of a Arctic front here over in Canada is dragging across. There are some clouds. Another batch of moisture, as I mentioned, coming in across southern Alaska. Really just clouds with this without much in the way of any precipitation at all. We get in some scattered snow showers. Caltag, though, down to a half mile in moderate snow this afternoon. And then the snow and blowing snow improving, actually. St. Lawrence Island gradually improving here for the Seward Peninsula as well. But still snow heavy at times with, again, those very strong wind gusts up there. So winter storm warnings out for that area with near whiteout conditions. Milder temperatures, snow mixes with rain, and pretty much all rain here across the Pribilofs on down into the eastern Aleutians, but very light amounts, weak 1,007 millibar low there near the Pribilofs. And then this moisture here with a trough down to the southeast coming northward on the western side of this ridge, just off to the southeast there, bringing more rain into the Alaska Peninsula, spilling in towards southwest Kodiak Island, and then snow showers from Adak all the way out to Shimei. Get a little more widespread out there, along with the stronger winds, but those winds will continue to diminish. Forecast for tonight, new low center forms. The weak one here shoots up to the southwest part of Norton Sound, roughly in about this position by 3 a.m. tomorrow morning. Front extending southeastward into a new development here that comes northward, southwest of Kodiak. So rain, Kodiak Island, and northwest winds getting pretty gusty tonight. Could see gusts 30 to 50 miles an hour here through the channel areas of the Alaska Peninsula. Also colder air getting pulled down with that wind, so snowfall levels falling back towards sea level there. Some snow shower activity, but nothing significant here with a trough coming over the top of a building ridge there just south of the Aleutians. And drying out though for the western central Aleutians, you see those winds really dropping off, actually really going rather light compared to what you had out there from Adak on out to Shimei and Attu. And less wind also up here over the northwest coast of the Bering Strait. Definitely better conditions St. Lawrence Island, but still snow, areas of blowing snow in advance of this front from roughly northern Bristol Bay all the way up. The lowest conditions up here over the northwest, not so bad down to the south, just advisories over the Yukon Delta. No advisories out for the Kuskokwim Delta. Stays dry and mostly cloudy, some clearing here over the eastern interior. And could see winds a little gusty here along the eastern Brooks Range, mostly around the Delta Junction area. And it looks like winds on the increase, pressure's building again, that gradient tightening here across the northern panhandle. So for those northeast winds to start picking up, could see gusts in the channeled areas anywhere from 40 to 50 miles an hour, but dry. And then for tomorrow, see this low kicks off to the east, and that strong wind band leaves the Alaska Peninsula at Bristol Bay, shifts into Kodiak Island. Now blow colder air down with snowfall levels falling throughout the day, and the precipitation, whatever's left in the afternoon, will be mostly in the form of snow across Kodiak. But those winds could see gusts over 50 miles an hour in the channeled areas there for Kodiak Island. Lighter up toward the Barrens. Lighter winds for the North Gulf Coast. Chance of rain and snow, southern Kenai Peninsula up into western Prince William Sound. Just a risk there for Cordova. Dry for Yakutat. And again, the wind, the gradient slackens here over the panhandle. So back to lighter winds and continued sunny conditions. Dry eastern interior, variable clouds, some sunshine tomorrow. East Copper River Basin, eastern interior areas. Chance of snow showers, eastern Beaufort Sea coast. A lot lighter winds now, conditions improving here up over, even over the northwest, although areas of snow continue along that frontal boundary from actually Kamishak Bay right on up across the Kuskokwim Delta, Selkirk, Noatak valleys, all the way up to the western Arctic coast. Snow showers coming on to the southwest coast, but pretty significant and rather scattered. Just a risk of some isolated showers for the Pribilofs, light winds there. Big storm coming back into the Aleutians with rain, possibly heavy at times, gale and storm force winds with it. Pretty huge area precipitation with that, as well as a wind field with those winds kicking up by tomorrow afternoon, even into the central Aleutians. And then the next day, that storm tracks northeastward like the one we did over the last 24 hours. But this one appears to be a little farther to the east than the other one. And so that's going to really hammer the St. Lawrence Island area here again with snow and blowing snow. And back into the snow, blowing snow, blizzard, winter storm conditions there for the northwest part of the state. Warmer air and the southwest wind, although pretty strong here. You can see gusts 40 to 60 miles an hour coming into the southwest coast. And rain coming northward, another push of warm air with that into the Kuskokwim Valley. Western Alaska range south across Bristol Bay. Much drier air following that in behind here, and then rain and snow showers for the Aleutians. Another sunny day for the southeast coast. North Gulf Coast looking good. Copper River Basin. Eastern interior mostly dry with some afternoon sunshine. And for lows tonight, anywhere from 5 above to 15 below over the eastern interior. Teens on the Arctic coast. Milder in the west. 20s, mid-20s, mid to upper 20s from the northwest, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island. Lower to mid-30s here over the southwest, and anywhere from 15 to 25 degrees more or less for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow afternoon, 20s to mid-30s for the southeast coast, teens Copper River Basin, single numbers in the northeast, and 20s for the Arctic coast. Near 40 again, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, lower to mid-30s for south central Alaska, mid-30s for the Pribilofs, near 40 for Adak. Lows the following morning, a little below zero up here over the northeast, 5 to 10 below, a little above along the Arctic coast, and a little cooler now, back down to the upper teens, south central Alaska, near 30 for Kodiak, and anywhere from 10 to 25 for the Panhandle. And for the highs in the Monday afternoon, mostly in the teens here over the eastern northern interior areas on out to the Arctic coast at AKwx, forecast high 24. Mid to upper 20s to near 30 here in the central Tanana Valley. In the breezy areas, upper 20s, south central Alaska, near 40 again for Kodiak, and mid 40s coming into the Alaska Peninsula, highs in the 30s across the southeast coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
A lot of IFR here onto the southwest coast, north, all the way up to Cape Lisburne. Marginal VFR, western North Slope and eastward here to about possibly as far east as Nuiqsut. And then good VFR here over the eastern interior, IFR up into western Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula, and along the portions of the western Alaska Range, VFR for the southeast coast, VFR for the central Aleutians and western Alaska Peninsula. And for the afternoon, a lot of VFR now out here over Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, and Nunivak Island, even the Pribilofs up across Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. This area shifting eastward. Marginal VFR, Cook Inlet, and maybe the westerns to Sitna Valley. IFR holds here, western Prince William Sound, marginal along the eastern North Gulf Coast. Actually, all the North Gulf Coast stays VFR for the Panhandle. Good VFR in the interior. Following morning, on Monday morning here, remains a good VFR day there for the southeast coast up into the Copper River Basin. Western Copper River Basin, the Talkeetna, is a little marginal up to the Alaska Range and the Tanana Valley, 40-mile country up to the upper Yukon. Some IFR there from the Koyukuk Valley on out to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. A break for VFR here into the southwest interior, but that next front, good southwest flow here will push this right up to Nunivak Island, and by the morning Monday, we'll see in the afternoon, that whole area drives northeastward with that southwest jet. And IFR right up, spilling over the western Alaska Range, marginal into the Susitna Valley, Cook Inlet, but staying VFR here, Copper River Basin northward. And IFR, St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula, but a couple of good VFR days continuing for the Panhandle. Passes Anaktuvik, possibly marginal VFR, maybe. Definitely, if it does, it'll be on the high end. And Anaktuvik, though, a little farther to the east out of the moisture, staying VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, trending toward IFR into the afternoon. And that same trend also for rainy conditions, a little lower, a little more deteriorated than in the morning there. And for windy, marginal VFR becoming VFR. For Isabel, VFR, Mentasta, VFR. And Tanita, also VFR. Portage, IFR, here eastern entrance through the pass, and then possibly marginal a little bit better on the west side. And for Chilkoot and White, VFR for the next couple of days. And for the freezing levels, got 2,000 feet with that persistent southerly flow here all the way up there to the North Slope and Arctic coast. A little bit warmer air aloft there. Otherwise, at the surface here, north of the Pribilofs, in across Kipnuk and up into the southern Kuskokwim Valley, 2,000 feet right around Kodiak Island, otherwise well to the south of the Aleutians and still off the southeast coast. And then for icing, moisture coming in, so possibly some considerable moderate here, Kenai Peninsula, western Alaska Range, Kamishak Bay, Iliamna area, and then some isolated back to the northwest, and then heavier icing coming into that next big storm into the western Aleutians, southwest Bering Sea. Possible considerable moderate pushing eastward to Atka Island. And with the jet stream tomorrow, upper level ridge building and then starting to shift off here, not hanging around too long. It's a big storm out here to the west. Eventually this whole ridge will push eastward. This jet will blow right on up first of next week into Monday into the interior. And for 9,000 feet for tomorrow here, 70-knot winds with that storm coming into the western Aleutians, and otherwise lighter winds, 20 to 30 knots with a trough swinging in something like this from northwest to southeast into the stronger low in the Gulf. 30-knot winds associated with that, up to 50 to 60 here, blowing down across the Alaska Peninsula. Lighter winds for the Panhandle. And at 3,000 feet, there's that low in the Gulf, and pretty good winds clipping southern Kodiak Island, 20 knots for the Barrens, coming around 25 knots up into the northern Gulf of Alaska. Not too bad wind-wise here with the Panhandle and the domination of that high pressure over the Yukon. And pretty light winds southern Alaska, some southerlies 15 to 25 up over the west central interior. And then stronger winds with the system out here to the west, 50 to as high as 65 knots out toward the western Aleutians. That whole thing pushing off to the northeast beyond this time tomorrow. And then for turbulence, widespread moderate chop here, possibly isolated severe for the Aleutian chain, except for the Fox Islands coming in there a little later. Moderate chop, Kodiak Island, right up into Bristol Bay, southern Kuskokwim Valley, areas of, right up into the northwest interior, possibly the east central Brooks Range. Pretty smooth in the eastern interior, maybe a little bumpy over from, say, Tok to Eagle.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's a dynamite, coronal mass ejection. It's when the sun, it kicks off energy and these explosions that are larger than the Earth, explosion type things coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the Earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the northern lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the northern lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside of you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job, that was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter, my goal from that moment and to this day still is to get one hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall, where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you're going to preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you are lifted up. Your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, you know, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was, or how fortunate. Of course, I just, you know, spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything, so you got to remember that, you know, luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. Well, that feeling could last for days.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis. As you can see, ice head still retreating pretty rapidly to the north here, and opening up southern Norton Sound along the coast with a continued strong southerly winds, north side St. Lawrence Island, and really falling apart here along the southwest coast. That's going to continue for a few more days, or at least until those southerly winds change direction. And for the southeast coast, east-southeast 15 on the south coast, southeast 20 increasing to 25 on the extreme north coast. Lynn Canal, north 20, seas 4 feet. 15-knot winds for Stevens Passage here with 3-foot seas, and small craft advisories Clarence Strait. A little windier down there, 25 knots, seas 4 feet. Outlook for Monday, coming back down to 15 knots or Clarence Strait, northeast 20, Stevens Passage. Increase here, especially early on for Lynn Canal, north 30. Small craft advisories, north winds 25 knots on the south coast, northwest 20 to 25 on the north coast. Prince William Sound, east winds 25 knots tomorrow, seas 6 feet. Southeast 25 here for the North Gulf Coast, southeast 30 for the Barren Islands, north 30 Kamishak Bay, Cook Inlet northeast at 20. For Monday, north winds at 10 for Cook Inlet, west 20 for Kamishak Bay, west 25 for the Barren Islands and the western North Gulf Coast. A little lighter here on the east side, still west at 20, and Prince William Sound, northwest 15. Kodiak Island, storm warnings tomorrow. That system pulling to the western Gulf. Good wind, storm force winds northwest 55 knots, 45 knots Chillicothe Strait. Storm warnings from let's see, Sitkinak to Chignik or Castle Cape, northwest 50. Alaska Peninsula, westerlies 45 knots. Bristol Bay, west 45 knots, seas 16 feet. And then they'll swing around to the southeast at 30, actually will come up to 30 knots in the afternoon there for Bristol Bay on Monday afternoon. Alaska Peninsula, southerlies 30 to 40 knots, seas 14 feet. Southwest 30, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, and Kodiak Island, southwest 25, seas 7 to 9 feet. Fox Islands tomorrow, mostly west at 30 knots, turning south here from Nikolsky to the west and picking up southeast 40 to 45 knots. That next storm coming, or next front, pushing in toward the central Aleutians, main storm center off to the southwest here. But east-southeast 45 for the western Aleutians, And then when that low center lifts northward, southwest 60 knots here from roughly Adak to around Kiska, west 55. So good storm warnings here right into the central Aleutian, southwest 45 to 55 knots. Seas up to 32 feet here, 43 feet out to the west, and southwest 35 to 45 knots for the Fox Islands, seas running 17 to 30 feet. And for the southwest coast, west 30 to 40 knots, strongest south in Nunivak Island, southwest 25. Brisk wind advisories both for St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. Gales for St. Matthew Island and the Pribilofs, west winds at 35, seas near 20 feet. Outlook the next day, storm warnings, Pribilof, St. Matthew Island, south-southwest winds at 50, seas 30 to 35 feet. South 45 knots, good gale right along the southwest coast there, and 45 knot winds for the St. Lawrence Island area, so gales even into Norton Sound, southeast 35. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, southeast 20, turning south on the central coast, light southeast breeze 15 on the west side. Westerlies, Cape Beaufort to Bering, so a lot lighter winds here tomorrow than what you saw today, that's for sure. West 15 from Cape Beaufort to Wales. And then for Monday, those come back up to at least brisk wind advisory levels, about 25 to 30 knots. West 15 on the west side. Brisk wind advisories, Eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Westerlies, 25 to 30 knots. For tonight, winds continue to diminish up here over the northwest. Snow continues though. Winter storm warning, St. Lawrence Island and the Seward Peninsula into the western interior here from the lower Yukon River Valley northward to the Southern Brooks Range with snow blowing snow. That'll extend down as cold air pulls southward here into Bristol Bay down to the Alaska Peninsula. Rain for Kodiak. Dry and breezy over the Panhandle, no change in the eastern interior. That holds through tomorrow as well. And then strong winds, storm force winds coming into Kodiak Island with falling snowfall levels, a band of snow along this frontal boundary in the west, dry in the east. Big storm pushing into the western Aleutian southwest Bering. Drives northeastward. It's going to hammer St. Lawrence Island, the Seward Peninsula, and the northwest coast with more snow and blowing snow and strong winds on Monday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.